Have you ever met someone who speaks English so effortlessly, so smoothly, that it almost seems like their thoughts are translating directly into words without any pause? You know, the kind of person who makes conversations feel light, natural, and even a little magical. And then you look at yourself, trying to string together sentences, hesitating at every word, wondering why it seems so easy for them. Today, we're going to uncover the psychology behind those fluent speakers and why fluency is as much about the mind as it is about the words. Let me start with a story. Imagine a young student named Sarah. She moved to an English-speaking country with a lot of excitement, but also a lot of fear. She wanted to make friends, join conversations, and feel at home. But the moment she tried to speak, something strange happened. Her mind would freeze. She'd know exactly what she wanted to say, but her mouth seemed to have its own plan. Words stumbled over each other, sentences fell apart, and her confidence started slipping. Does that sound familiar? I've seen it with so many learners. What Sarah didn't realize at first was that fluency isn't just about grammar or vocabulary. It's about psychology. You see, the human brain has a very interesting way of processing language. Fluent speakers have trained their brains to bypass that hesitation, that self-judgment, and focus entirely on the flow of communication. It's almost like their brain and mouth are on the same wavelength. For someone learning English, it can feel like a huge leap, but it's really about rewiring your mental habits. Every fluent speaker has done it, sometimes consciously, sometimes without even realizing it. One key factor is mindset. A fluent speaker doesn't think, "I hope I don't make mistakes," or "I must be perfect." They think, "I am communicating, and that's what matters." That shift in mindset alone is transformative. Mistakes are no longer threats, they are tools. Think about it when you were a child learning to talk. Nobody expected perfect sentences. You babbled, experimented, and gradually learned. Fluency works the same way. Your inner critic needs to step aside, and your curiosity, your playful side, needs to take the lead. And there's more. Fluent speakers are incredibly comfortable with ambiguity. They're okay with not knowing a word or phrase, with pausing and thinking on the spot. Instead of freezing, they find ways around it. Maybe they describe the word. Maybe they use gestures. Maybe they just keep talking and figure it out later. Their brains are wired for resilience in communication. That's why you might see a fluent speaker pause briefly and continue effortlessly, while a learner might stop completely at the first hurdle. Another fascinating element is attention. Fluent speakers focus more on the message than on themselves. Their energy goes into the conversation, the other person, the story they're telling. They're not constantly monitoring their grammar or pronunciation. In psychology, this is called being in a flow state, a moment where the mind is fully immersed in the activity and fear or self-doubt disappears. Imagine being so absorbed in talking about your favorite hobby that the words just spill out naturally. That's what fluent speakers cultivate, consciously or unconsciously. Let's talk about self-talk for a moment. Inside the mind of a fluent speaker, the inner voice is supportive, not critical. They might think, "I can figure this out," instead of, "I'm going to mess up." And this positive inner dialogue isn't just fluff, it literally changes the way the brain processes language. Neurologically, positive expectations activate pathways that make speech retrieval faster and smoother. Negative thoughts. They slow you down, they interrupt your flow, they trigger anxiety. That's why psychology is so central to fluency. It's all happening inside the mind before the words even reach your mouth. Now, here's something really interesting. Fluent speakers are usually risk takers in conversation. They're willing to experiment with new words, phrases, and sentence structures even if it feels uncomfortable. Imagine someone trying a new recipe in the kitchen. They might make mistakes, but they also learn faster because they're actively experimenting. Fluent speakers do the same with language. They take mental risks, and that's how their fluency grows. And the story doesn't stop there. Let's think about memory. Fluency isn't just about knowing a lot of words, it's about how your brain stores and retrieves them. Fluent speakers have developed what we might call a mental library of phrases, chunks of language, expressions, and sentence structures that are ready to be pulled out at any moment. Instead of constructing each sentence word by word, they use these pre-built mental templates, which is why they can speak quickly and confidently. As learners, we can build the same library by practicing phrases, listening actively, and repeating patterns until they become automatic. But there's one more hidden factor: emotional comfort. Fluency thrives in an environment where the speaker feels safe, relaxed, and accepted. Stress, judgment, or fear of embarrassment can sabotage even the most talented speaker. That's why immersion, practice in supportive settings, and connecting emotionally with the language makes such a difference. Your brain remembers more when it's relaxed and engaged, which is why stories, humor, and personal experiences are so powerful in learning English. Think about all this for a moment: the mindset, the flow, the risk, taking the mental library, emotional comfort, they all interact. Fluency is a psychological ecosystem. You can study grammar for years, memorize thousands of words, but if your mind isn't conditioned for the flow of conversation, fluency will always feel out of reach. The good news: you can train your mind just like you train your body. Every conversation you have, every word you attempt, every small risk you take, strengthens the mental pathways that make fluent speech possible. And here's the secret most people don't tell you. It's okay to start small. You don't need to speak perfectly for 30 minutes straight to build your fluency. Start with 30 seconds of confidence. One short story, a simple exchange with a friend. Your brain celebrates these victories, and each small success compounds over time, building resilience, speed, and comfort in your speaking ability. Even the pauses, the ums, and the has are part of the process. Fluent speakers often use pauses effectively. They buy time, gather thoughts, and signal engagement. When you fear every pause, your brain tenses, your words stumble, and fluency feels impossible. But when you embrace natural pauses as tools, you relax, think clearly, and communicate more effectively. What's fascinating is that many fluent speakers report that their fluency really clicked when they stopped overthinking. There's no magical age, no secret formula. It's about psychology, the way you handle mistakes, the way you focus on ideas instead of rules, the way you approach conversation with curiosity rather than fear. That shift is gradual, subtle, but incredibly powerful. And here's the beauty of it. Once your mind adapts to this way of thinking, fluency stops being a conscious effort. It becomes a habit, a state of mind. You start enjoying conversations instead of fearing them. You become playful with language, exploring words like colors on a canvas. And just like that, English becomes part of who you are, not just a skill you perform. Let's dive into an example of someone you might have never thought about. Think of someone like Emma, a traveler who moved between countries, learning English on the go. She didn't have formal classes at first. Instead, she immersed herself in conversations, ordering food, asking for directions, chatting with locals. At first, she made mistakes, of course, but she embraced them. She discovered a fascinating patterns every time she made a mistake and corrected it naturally. Her brain remembered it more vividly than any grammar rule she had memorized. That's the psychology in action. The brain learns better through meaningful, emotional experiences than through repetition alone. This is one reason stories are so powerful in learning fluency. When you tie words to emotions, experiences, or imagery, your brain creates stronger connections. For instance, rather than just memorizing the word, beautiful, you might describe a sunset you saw, painting it in your mind and speaking it out loud. Suddenly, English isn't a series of abstract rules, it's a vivid, living experience. Fluent speakers do this automatically. They connect language to life. You can do the same by turning ordinary moments into mini stories, even if it's just talking to yourself. Now, let's talk about attention again, but in a slightly different way. Fluent speakers have trained themselves to focus on meaning rather than form. When they speak, they care more about what they are saying than whether every word is perfectly correct. This doesn't mean mistakes don't exist. They do, but mistakes become invisible, almost irrelevant. Think of it like painting. If you're too worried about every brush stroke being perfect, you'll never create a masterpiece. Focus on the picture, the story, the idea, and the details will follow naturally. Here's another fascinating mental trick that fluent speakers often use, sometimes without even realizing it: visualization. Before speaking, they picture the conversation in their mind. They imagine themselves walking into a cafe, greeting the barista, ordering a coffee, chatting about the weather. By mentally rehearsing scenarios, they reduce fear and prepare their mind for action. This isn't just a parlor trick neurologically. Your brain practices the activity as if it's real. You can do this too. Spend 5 minutes imagining a conversation before it happens, and when it does, your words flow more easily. And then there's the power of listening. Fluent speakers are incredible listeners. But here's the key: they're not just hearing words, they're decoding patterns, intonation, sentence structures, and rhythm. Listening becomes a way to absorb the feel of English, not just vocabulary. It trains the brain to anticipate sentences, recognize expressions, and predict what comes next. That anticipation reduces hesitation and builds confidence. So, next time you watch a movie, listen to a podcast, or have a conversation, notice the patterns and rhythm of speech. Your brain is silently building fluency in the background. Let's not forget body language and voice. Fluency isn't only in the words, it's in the gestures, tone, and pacing. Fluent speakers often use their hands, facial expressions, and pauses to support what they're saying. These cues help the brain coordinate thought and speech. You can practice this by recording yourself telling a story and paying attention to how your body naturally moves with your words. Over time, your mind and body sync, and fluency starts to feel effortless. Here's a story that illustrates this beautifully. There was a man named Raj who was terrified of public speaking in English, but he loved storytelling. One day, he started telling short stories to his friends using expressive gestures, exaggerated tones, and pauses for effect. His stories became captivating, not because his grammar was perfect, but because his mind and body were aligned. His brain started associating English with enjoyment and expression, not fear and judgment. Eventually, he became one of the most confident speakers in his community. That psychology at work fluency isn't just learned, it's experienced. Now let's talk about habits. Fluency grows with daily, deliberate practice. But the psychology behind it is fascinating. It's about small, consistent victories. You might speak 5 sentences a day, listen to a podcast, repeat a phrase, or narrate a personal story to yourself. Each small action strengthens neural pathways, builds confidence, and reduces anxiety. The human brain loves patterns, repetition, and reward. By turning English practice into a habit you enjoy, your mind rewards you with fluency. Another secret element is curiosity. Fluent speakers are naturally curious. They ask questions, explore ideas, and immerse themselves in stories, culture, and language. This curiosity drives engagement, which in turn accelerates learning. You can cultivate this by being genuinely interested in people, topics, and situations in English. Don't focus on learning English. Focus on discovering, connecting, and exploring through English. The language becomes a tool, not a task. Let's explore the concept of thinking in English. Many learners translate from their native language, which slows down speech and creates hesitation. Fluent speakers train themselves to think directly in English. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a mental habit you build over time. Start with small things. Narrate your daily activities in English. Describe what you see or think aloud while doing simple tasks. Gradually, your mind becomes bilingual in action, not just in knowledge, and that's where fluency begins to feel natural. One more critical psychological insight: resilience. Conversations rarely go perfectly. Fluent speakers embrace the bumps, the mispronunciations, the awkward pauses. Instead of shrinking from them, they use them as stepping stones. Each conversational challenge strengthens confidence and reinforces the mental circuits that support fluent speaking. Imagine every mistake as a workout for your brain. Over time, you're not just speaking English, you're training your mind to thrive in uncertainty, ambiguity, and creativity. Finally, let's think about identity. Fluent speakers often see themselves as English speakers rather than learners of English. This subtle shift in identity transforms behavior. When you identify as a speaker, your actions, thoughts, and attitudes align with that identity. You naturally take risks, engage in conversations, and seek opportunities to communicate. Your brain starts performing as if fluency is already part of who you are, which is why self-perception is such a powerful psychological tool. Now that we've explored the mindset, habits, and psychology of fluent speakers, let's bring this into action. Let's do some exercises together. Don't worry. You can do them right where you are, and they're designed to train your brain as much as your mouth. First, let's start with a story scaffolding exercise. Think of a simple story from your life, maybe something as small as a walk in the park, a funny encounter, or a meal you cooked. Now, break it into 3 parts, beginning, middle, and end. Speak the beginning aloud, focusing not on grammar, but on getting the idea across. Then move to the middle, and finally the end. Don't stop to correct yourself. The goal is to keep your brain in motion, like a river flowing, rather than freezing at the first obstacle. Fluent speakers do this naturally. They prioritize flow over perfection. The more you practice, the more your brain will automatically fill in the gaps with correct grammar and vocabulary. Next, let's try the pause and paint technique. Pick a short paragraph from a book article or even a news story. Read it silently first, then read it aloud slowly, pausing after every phrase. As you pause, visualize what you just said. If the paragraph talks about a busy street, imagine the cars, people, sounds, and colors. Speak it again, this time letting your hands move naturally, showing the story as if you were on stage. This trains your brain and body to work together, making your speech more fluent and expressive. Over time, your pauses won't feel like gaps. They'll become tools for clarity and rhythm. Here's another powerful exercise. Conversation simulation. Imagine a conversation you might have tomorrow, a friend asking about your day, a waiter taking your order, a coworker explaining a task. Close your eyes and play both roles in your mind first. Then speak it out loud. Try to respond naturally, even if you make mistakes. Fluent speakers do this unconsciously all the time. They mentally rehearse, anticipate, and improvise. You can do it deliberately. Each time you do this, you're strengthening your conversational instincts. Let's also talk about chunking. Instead of thinking word by word, start thinking in phrases or chunks. For example, instead of saying, "I am going to the store because I need to buy vegetables," you could chunk it into, "I'm going to the store to get vegetables." Chunking helps your brain retrieve language faster. Fluent speakers rely heavily on chunks. They don't construct sentences from scratch every time. You can practice this by listening to native speakers, repeating their sentences as chunks, and using them in your own conversations. Another fun exercise is role reversal. Imagine you are the teacher and explaining something to a beginner. Pick any topic: how to cook rice, your favorite hobby, or a simple story, and explain it aloud in English as if someone is learning from you. This forces your brain to simplify language, use active vocabulary, and structure sentences clearly. Fluent speakers often do this naturally. When they mentor or guide others, they clarify their own thinking and make language automatic. Now, let's add a psychological twist to practice positive self-talk rehearsal. Before speaking, say to yourself, "I am capable. I can express myself clearly. Mistakes are part of learning." Then, speak aloud anything you want: a short story, your plans for the day, or even random thoughts. Your inner voice shapes your outer voice. Fluent speakers train this positive dialogue every day, often unconsciously. You can do it deliberately. Here's another technique: shadowing. Pick a short audio clip from a podcast, video, or TV show. Play a few seconds, pause, and immediately repeat exactly what you heard, mimicking the tone, rhythm, and intonation. Then try without pausing, speaking along with the speaker in real time. This develops not just pronunciation, but also mental agility and anticipation, key traits of fluent speakers. The goal isn't perfection, it's the brain's ability to sync with real world English. We can also integrate curiosity journaling. Every day, write a short paragraph in English about something that surprised or interested you. Then read it aloud, embellishing details, adding gestures, and emphasizing keywords. This turns ordinary reflection into fluency training. Fluent speakers constantly connect language to curiosity, excitement, and meaning. They aren't just practicing words, they're practicing thinking in English. Let's not forget social practice. Fluent speakers often seek authentic interaction. You can start small, chat with a friend, comment in online communities, or participate in a discussion group. Use all the techniques we've talked about: flow over perfection, chunking, pauses, visualization, positive self-talk. Every interaction is a mental workout, strengthening the neural circuits that make fluent speech possible. And here's an advanced mental exercise: reframe hesitation. When you feel yourself pausing or worrying about a mistake, consciously say to yourself, "This pause is my brain organizing thoughts. This mistake is a step forward." Then continue. Fluent speakers don't fear hesitation, they use it strategically. The brain quickly learns that pauses aren't threats, they're tools for clarity and rhythm. Finally, let's combine everything into a daily fluency routine. Spend 5 minutes telling a story aloud, 5 minutes shadowing audio, 5 minutes on chunked phrases, 5 minutes on role reversal, and 5 minutes reflecting with curiosity journaling. Even a short, focused practice daily rewires your mind over weeks. Fluent speakers often don't realize it, but these small, consistent habits are what make the difference between hesitant speech and effortless fluency. And here's the beauty of it all: the more you integrate psychology into your practice, the more natural fluency becomes. It's no longer about memorizing words or grammar, it's about thinking in English, trusting your mind, experimenting fearlessly, and enjoying the process. Your brain adapts, your confidence grows. Conversations become playful, spontaneous, and engaging. English transforms from a skill into a natural part of who you are. Let's imagine another learner, Alex. Alex was terrified of speaking English in public. Every time he tried, his hands shook, his mind raced, and sentences fell apart. But he discovered a powerful psychological trick. He started treating every conversation like a mini experiment. Instead of aiming for perfection, he aimed for discovery. What happens if I try this phrase? What happens if I speak for 1 minute without stopping? What happens if I ask someone to explain a word I don't know? By framing speaking as a playful experiment, Alex removed fear and made fluency fun. Over time, his brain associated English with curiosity and reward, not stress. Here's a mini challenge you can try with me right now. I want you to take one simple topic like your favorite meal, your morning routine, or a recent movie you watched. Speak about it aloud for exactly 1 minute. Don't worry about mistakes, pauses, or pronunciation. Just keep going. Your goal isn't perfect English, it's movement. Just like Alex, every second you speak strengthens your brain's fluency pathways. Next, let's add another layer: interactive storytelling. Fluent speakers often tell stories naturally, but they do it in a very specific way. They engage their audience. They use questions, pauses, emphasis, and emotion to pull listeners in. You can practice this too. Take a short story, maybe something that happened today, and try telling it aloud, imagining that I'm sitting right here listening. Ask questions as you go, like, can you imagine what happened next? Or, have you ever seen something like this? This trains your brain to combine narrative, emotion, and language, which is exactly what fluent speakers do unconsciously. Now, let's talk about timing and rhythm. Fluent speakers have a natural rhythm. They speed up and slow down, emphasize words, and know when to pause. To practice this, read aloud a short paragraph from a story, but this time, exaggerate the rhythm. Pause dramatically at key points. Stretch certain words. Speak faster in exciting moments. This trains your brain to feel English, not just speak it mechanically. Over time, your mind will instinctively adopt these rhythms, making your speech more natural and confident. Another mini challenge: shadowing with emotion. Pick a short dialogue from a movie or show. Play it aloud, then immediately repeat it aloud, copying not just the words but the emotion, tone, and gestures. Speak it louder, softer, faster. Slower experiment with delivery. Fluent speakers often do this without realizing it. They mirror others and absorb natural intonation and emotion. Your brain is doing the same work, building fluency and confidence at the same time. Let's also explore mental rehearsal under stress. Fluent speakers can stay calm even when conversations go unexpectedly. You can practice this too. Imagine a situation that makes you nervous, maybe ordering food in a busy cafe or asking a stranger for directions. Close your eyes and run the conversation in your mind. Now speak it aloud, but intentionally add a little challenge. Maybe a tricky word, a sudden question, or a distraction. Your goal is to respond naturally and keep going. Over time, your brain learns that stress is temporary, mistakes are normal, and fluency is possible under pressure. Here's a story that illustrates this perfectly. Maria, an English learner from Spain, was preparing for a presentation. She felt nervous and worried about every word, so she started practicing aloud, adding imaginary interruptions and difficult questions. At first, it was chaotic, but gradually she noticed something incredible. In the real presentation, even when a question threw her off, she stayed calm, spoke smoothly, and responded confidently. Her brain had been trained to expect challenges and handle them. That's the psychology behind fluent speakers' anticipation, resilience, and adaptability. Now let's try role playing with twists. Imagine you're in a restaurant, and suddenly the waiter asks you a completely unexpected question. Or you're at a party, and someone asks you to describe something unusual. Speak aloud and improvise. Fluent speakers thrive in uncertainty. They treat unexpected situations as opportunities, not obstacles. By practicing this, you build mental flexibility, quick thinking, and natural fluency. Let's layer in one more advanced technique: mental storytelling loops. Take a memory from your life, a vacation, a birthday, or even a funny accident. Tell the story aloud once. Then, tell it again, but change the perspective, maybe from another person's point of view, or as if it happened in the future. Then tell it a third time, exaggerating details or adding humor. Each repetition forces your brain to retrieve and reorganize language creatively, which is exactly what fluent speakers do unconsciously. And here's a final mini challenge to tie it all together. Speak for 10 minutes without stopping. Pick a topic, start telling a story, include questions, add pauses, mimic emotion, experiment with rhythm, and improvise. Don't worry about mistakes. If you freeze, just keep talking about something else. The goal is flow, not perfection. After 10 minutes, notice how your brain starts finding words automatically, how sentences form naturally, and how your confidence grows. Fluent speakers aren't born, they're trained. Every habit, exercise, story, and mini challenge we've discussed rewires the brain, builds resilience, and strengthens communication instincts. Psychology, mindset, curiosity, and repetition are the secret ingredients. The more you engage with these techniques, the more automatic your fluency becomes. And here's the most exciting part. Once your mind is trained, English stops feeling like a task. It becomes playful, dynamic, and expressive. You start thinking in English, feeling in English, and speaking in English almost without realizing it. Conversations become fun rather than stressful. Mistakes become opportunities to learn rather than threats. And gradually, just like Alex Maria and countless others, fluency isn't something you chase, it's who you are. So, as we come to the close of today's journey into the psychology behind fluent speakers, I want you to pause for a moment and really reflect on everything we've explored. Fluency isn't about perfect grammar, fancy words, or even endless memorization. It's about mindset, curiosity, resilience, and the way your brain connects thought and speech. It's about flow, playfulness, and the courage to experiment, make mistakes, and keep going. Think about all the mini challenges we practiced together: the story scaffolding, shadowing, role-playing, chunking, visualization, and positive self-talk. Each one of these is a tool, a mental workout, a step toward making English feel natural, expressive, and alive. The more consistently you practice, the more your brain adapts, and the more confident you'll become. Fluent speakers aren't special, they've just trained their minds, habits, and emotions to work in harmony with language. And now you have the same roadmap. Remember, fluency is a journey, not a destination. Celebrate the small victories, the first sentence you speak confidently, the first story you tell without stopping, the first time you recover gracefully from a mistake. Each step reinforces the mental pathways that make English effortless and enjoyable. And here's the best part: you don't have to wait for perfection. Start now. Speak, experiment, play with the language, and immerse yourself in it. Make English part of your thinking, your storytelling, your curiosity, and your identity. Because once your mind embraces it, fluency becomes not just possible but inevitable. So take what we've practiced today, use it, enjoy it, and watch yourself transform. Your brain, your voice, and your confidence are all waiting to catch up with the fluent speaker you are becoming. And that's what the psychology behind fluent speakers really comes down to: a mindset, a habit, and a way of experiencing language that makes speaking English feel as natural as breathing.